Hello, I should say lovers, my tantric lovers. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I know this might seem a bit redundant if you're just popping on or scrolling by and somehow YouTube has happened to put me in the algorithm, which would be extremely wild. And you're not familiar with who I am, well then great. For a lot of y'all, this might be your first time seeing me or my work. And so it's my goal to first of all get my settings correct. Y'all bear with me here. But it's also my goal to kind of explain what it is I do, a little bit about who I am, why you should care, and to introduce my podcast on Apple and Spotify to the work of Tantric intimacy, Shakti living. What is that all about? Why does it concern you? And why should you give me your time and energy? So for those of you who know me, this will be a reintroduction. But if you stay to the end, I'm going to give a little sneak peek into my next episode. And you guys know the drill. If you are liking this content, even if you don't like it and you're bored, please just put the likes up. You know, I used to be in the algorithms and I'm trying to get back in. I'm trying to bring this tantric and intimacy, this content to you without being banned. So anything you guys do helps. So like, subscribe if you're not already subscribing. Make sure that you leave comments. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. I actually do go through and read them. The other day, someone commented saying that, you know, the cover was misleading. It was clickbait. And so I responded back to them because I don't want you guys ever thinking I'm wasting your time. I would never want to do that. Your time is valuable. And I just want to add value to your life and give you some tantric principles in a modern day world of intimacy and relationships that have become so convoluted and so chaotic and so hard to decipher. It's almost confusing to know which way to go. And so I'm here just to offer you another approach that's based on metaphysics. It's based on science. It's based on the science of sexual polarity. It's also a spiritual practice. It's not a religion. And so if any of these things, it's also a personal development path. So if any of these things are intriguing to you, then yes, you should stick around. Yes, you should listen to the intricacies of this path, why it's for you, a little bit of history about me, because it's not about me, it's about you, boo. But I do want you to understand like where my trainings come from, my lineage and things like that. So it makes sense to you. Like, oh, I should take what this woman's saying as maybe some truth. And as the Buddha said, my darlings, always question everything. Just because I tell you or some YouTuber that has hundreds of millions of subscribers doesn't mean it's the truth. You should work out your own salvation, as it says in the Bible, and just see what works for you. But this is just a different approach. So for my podcasters on Apple and Spotify, which this will be edited and streamed there, I want to welcome all of you. Thank you for coming. This is my YouTube audience. They've been with me from the get-go. And I just want to talk a little bit about how I got started. So first of all, I think it's fair enough to say that the world that we live in today is extremely confusing when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to sex and sexuality. I think I'm going to say sexuality because I feel like that is maybe a safer word. I just never know what's getting flagged or banned or whatever these days. So when it comes to all of those things, I think that, you know, today we have been sort of spoon-fed what the masses want us to believe about intimacy, about relationships, about sexuality and relationships and how these function. They've showed us what they wanted us to see by portraying what fits their narrative for the greater good of consumerism and for the greater good of what fits their idea of what a relationship, what a marriage, what that should look like. So that's what we have been spoon-fed. That's being projected out there in media, in television, in radio, etc., etc., etc. We're not getting what's really good for you, boo. We're getting what's good for them. for they, if you will, now. You know, we can't even use pronouns anymore, or we can't even use he, like he, she. Now we have a myriad, and I don't want to say too much on this because I might get canceled. Like, we have to now figure out genders and be, it's like, I have a 9-year-old son, and I am absolutely, I don't want to say terrified, but I'm kind of nervous about what that future looks for our children in regards to dating and relationships and marriage and healthy sexuality in those relationships. So I think we can all agree that it's become increasingly confusing to understand what is healthy, like what's a healthy relationship look like today? Am I supposed to ignore the girl? Am I supposed to not pay her any attention at all? Am I supposed to respond to his messages, or no, maybe I should wait because I was told that if I respond that it'll seem like I'm too eager and then he shouldn't be interested in me, and then I'm going to back off completely, and then I'm going to be alone and die alone with cats and my adult toys that turn on and off. It's like, it's confusing, and everyone has jumped on the bandwagon of confusion because it's fitting a narrative of something that they want to sell. For instance, we have, you know, influencers like Fresh and Fit who told men, you know, like, this is what you need to do. You need to get your body right. Check. Yeah. You need to get your finances right. Absolutely. You need to sleep with 50 men before you can get serious with one. Like, these things are really freaking kind of crazy to me. Like, and that you should wait your whole life before you ever settle down with a woman and hope that you get $1 million in the bank, like, you know, they might have, and then settle down with a virgin who's never been with anyone after you have slept with a myriad of women and decided and gotten better at sex. But really, you don't get better at sex. You just keep doing the same thing over and over, because the only way to really truly get good at intimacy, relationships, and healthy sexuality is to have a manual of what works, what doesn't work, to understand your body, to understand a woman's body, to understand your sexual anatomy, her sexual anatomy, your sexual anatomy together, how what you're putting in your body is affecting your sexuality, whether that's food, drugs, alcohol, prescription drugs, how what you're putting your food in, talking about plastics and estrogens and things like that's affecting you. Like, it's a myriad of things that affect your sexuality and in relationships today, but nobody has ever sat down and talked about those with us, because we've only been given this like dialogue of what was benefiting whoever was pushing it. You got sexual education in school. Well, that was fairly futile because they mostly told you like fear-based. You're going to get an STI, I think they call it. It used to be STD, STI. I don't know what it's called now. Whatever it's called now, they are saying you're going to get, or you're going to get someone pregnant. So mostly you were taught fear around sexuality. Now, if you're a heterosexual man, even if you're not a heterosexual man, if you're a man, you know the one thing that you don't want attached to your sexuality is fear. Why? Because fear does not equal, I don't even know if I can say this word, an erection. Jeez, I hope I can. It's exhausting doing this and not knowing what's going to get you canceled and what, it's absolutely exhausting. So at any rate, so this is the one message you've given. The other message you probably received about sexuality and relationships was from your church or from your religion. And most religions are teaching you abstinence, do not have sex until marriage. If you have sex before marriage, you are going to hell, one-way ticket to hell, first class, all the beverages you want, but you're going to hell. That's what most people were taught. Now, if you grew up in some unique, like interesting family, then perhaps you were given some kind of, you know, healthier education around sexuality, which my son would be one of those outliers because of what I do. But these are the messages that you've mostly been given around sexuality. Or if you were given some kind of education around sexuality by your parents, it was very awkward. It was very weird. I've heard of all the different things that were told to children by their parents from my clients at my retreats and just in one-on-ones. They've told me some very interesting things that happened that really messed with their head. And now we have today, right? Today is 2024, it's social media galore. It's YouTube, it's Rumble, it's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's X. It's just so much content everywhere. It's like content overload. And the good thing about that is that you have no excuse to not be educated around things. However, today there's also a lot of misinformation that's out there, and information of people who just got popular, but maybe their content isn't really freaking working. Like, maybe what they're saying is popular, and they presented it and they packaged it in a way that people shared, and it pushed them in the algorithms, but maybe that content it's not valid, it's not real, it doesn't really work in a real intimate relationship today. And if you talk to most people, whether they have money or whether they don't have money, the one thing that you will find in common is that the quality of their life is determined by the quality of their intimate relationships and where they stay emotionally. We know that. That's just psychology. NLP, if you will. But so even if you have money, if you don't have money, if you don't have relationships, if you don't have a healthy, intimate relationship with someone or with others, then you're not happy. So it seems to me like we need to put a little more emphasis on how we're educating our children, how as adults we're educated, even though like a lot of us, it's never too late, but we've already lived half of our years or a quarter of our years, and we don't know anything about intimacy. We know absolutely nothing about sex in a healthy relationship. We don't even know what a healthy relationship is. We, one, have never seen it. It's never been modeled for us. Two, we've only seen what social media presents us to be healthy relationships, which is a myriad of things that we know for sure are not. And then the third is like we have our own experiences, right? And for many people, our experiences create a reality. So whatever we experience every day is what we think a healthy relationship should be. So perhaps you never got that bond with your mom that you should have had, that healthy, intimate bond with your mom. And so you don't really know what it's like to have that connection, that healthy, not sexual, just that healthy connection with a motherly, nurturing figure, right? So then you might go out seeking that. And a lot of times our deepest like pains and traumas, and I just realized I didn't use my mic or any of my setup. Oh well. Anyways, tell me if you guys can hear me. I feel like I'm projecting, but next time I have to plug into my mic in this whole setup that I have here. Anyways, so a lot of times your deepest get away with sounds, going on OnlyFans, there's something feminist pushes. Jennelle's Alex, we met back. Chargers training. Oh. Hi, Alex. Nice to meet you. Just don't want to get... Hold on, I'm reading some of these comments right here. Yeah, feminism did. Alex Rodriguez, hi. It's nice to meet you. Lonely fans. Yeah. So, okay. So I guess everyone can hear me. Next time I am going to use my headset and my microphone. Anyways, yeah. So I think that this is like, to finish my thought, because I know they're going to edit this for podcast. So a lot of times the thing that was our most traumatic or our deepest pain growing up is the thing that we go seeking for in a relationship to fill that void, or we go into in an adulterated way, if that makes sense. I see a lot of unhealthy kind of dynamics between the mother-son relationship, and I feel like that plays out in a kind of perverse way if that's not healed, if that makes sense. So we have this miseducation of sex, which is a little sneak peek of a chapter in my book that is dropping this summer. I'm very excited about that. And then we have this just interesting, convoluted view of sexuality today because of social media and the rise of influencers and the rise of people who I think mostly are well-meaning and maybe want the best, but you have to think like does this person really want the best for me, or they just want to make money? And I'd be lying to say that all of us don't want to make money, right? We all want to have a life and take care of our families and children. But I feel like this misrepresentation of some of the red pill movement and some of the things that have the modern feminism and all that. I am the person who tries to be extremely egalitarian in both perspectives. Yes, I've been on red pill pods, and I understand the dangers of the modern feminist movement. And I come from an extremely Christian, religious, dogmatic, even cult-like environment. That's how I was raised. And then I was educated in a yoga, a tantric ashram, if you will. So I really have a very interesting perspective, which I think is quite, it makes my work quite dynamic, because I've kind of seen all sides of the spectrum. I grew up extremely impoverished, and I grew up in a third world country as a pastor and missionary's daughter. And then because I don't want to go too much into my story, but I want to give like everyone on the podcast a little bit of just an overview of who I am and why I'm here. So because of my extremely intense, if you will, abusive childhood, infant in childhood, I was placed in the foster system, and I went through that whole experience. And then on the other side, I got mixed up with the wrong people. I got caught up in the life in Vegas. I was in the adult entertainment world, in the strip clubs. And from there, I had a pimp. And I went in and out of that cycle for almost a decade. And I got out because I call him my guardian angel, just saw something in me and said, listen, like, I know the deepest traumas can be healed, and I want you to go to a tantra school because this really helped me. Like, this legitimately happened. I never even met this guy, never danced for him, nothing, never even talked to him. A waitress just, brought him over to me and said, this guy wants to meet you. And so from there, I started my journey. I went overseas. I spent a year training at this ashram in Thailand with my gurus and my masters. And I kind of like uneffed myself and all the mentalities of the religious dogma, the oppression, the sexual trauma and shame and abuse and things I'd experienced really my entire life. And then to go into this place where I could just kind of unleash and let it all out and do the work that I'd never done. Go through the challenges in myself that I wasn't willing to face. Do the inner work of healing myself. I spent a year doing, hours and hours of hatha yoga, hours and hours of meditation, days of just eating nothing but buckwheat and fasting and praying, and just, when I tell you, like, intense upon intense upon intensity, like anything that you've experienced in your local yoga studio, just times 1,000. So I did that for a year and really learned from my teachers, learned from my gurus. I have the utmost respect for my teachers and my gurus, as my lineage just goes back several thousand years from India. Even went to India, studied and did some puja, some cleansing rituals there to just really get a blank new slate on life. And I thought, wow, if someone with as much trauma and pain and suffering could heal with this concept of understanding, like, the science of sexual polarity, the ultimate union, what this practice really meant, I thought I would like to bring this to people who would never step foot in a yoga studio. Because the yogis, they they have all their practice. I don't want to reach those people. I want to reach people like you who are watching and listening to me right now, who are maybe just, quote, regular people driving to work, 9-to-5s, have, marriages, want to get married, have had failed relationships, have had some kind of sexual trauma. And I think this was the thing. I always had so much shame because I felt like I was, like, oh my gosh, I get so like emotional when I talk about this stuff, and I don't really go this deep on YouTube, but I really wanted to kind of, I go here in my retreats, but I wanted to capture this, I guess, for people listening, because I want them to feel, I always thought like something was wrong with me because my birth mom, gave me up. and I wasn't raised with her. And I grew up in a Caucasian family, and I just felt like I didn't fit in because I didn't look Caucasian, like at all. Like, what part of me looks Caucasian, right? Like, I always had these deep-seated insecurities, and I knew that other people probably felt that way too about things that had happened to them. And I feel like the biggest shame, yes, women have this shame because, 1 out of every 5 women has experienced some kind of, sexual assault, abuse, trauma, etc. But the statistics about men, I feel, are often overlooked. And I felt that men who come to me in my practice would have these immense stories of like sexual traumas and shames and pains that happened to them when they were young that they just held in their entire lives, especially in the African American world. They just never told anyone because you weren't allowed to say anything. And I think that when you mix all of that with the narrative that we have on sex and relationships today, you have a just disastrous recipe. You call this lonely fans now, like this age of lonely fans where men are more apt to pay a woman on there than they would about putting in the work, healing themselves, building themselves up as a man, and having the courage to even take a woman out or ask her out. And on the other token, we have women who have now decided it's better that they be men. That not that they become a transgender or anything like that, but that they take on that role of a man. Like, I need to protect and provide for myself now. I need to block out and protect my heart at all costs. So that means not being vulnerable, not being divinely connected to my feminine essence, that energy. Like, I can't do that, right? I've got to be the boss. I have to be, all the songs, Beyonce and all these people, we run the world, all these things that promote women being powerful, which there's nothing wrong with women being powerful, although I believe women have too much power today. But women not needing men. That's the thing that I have the challenge with, because we do need men. We, if you believe the Bible, we literally came from men. And there's a part of us that is always craving that ultimate union. Another chapter in my book. I got to stop giving all these teasers away. But and so we're in this place, I feel, of desperation. I now realize like the popularity of these adult sexual rooms now, where people are having sexual relations. I sound like Bill Clinton here, in virtual reality now. Like, that's the trend, to do that over go out and actually meet a woman and engage. And we realize that more and more virgins are popping up in the world, with men who are not having relationships with women on any capacity, emotional, mental, energetic, spiritual, sexual, none of them. They're not having any of them. They're having relationships with lonely fans, and they're going on these sites and engaging in illicit sexual activities virtually. And I'm just like, when you sit back and really just look at all that, you like remove yourself out of it, I think it gives me so much more empathy for my clients, and to understand like where people's desire is coming from. It's coming from a lack. It's coming from a place where they have already come into the equation burdened. They've come in with trauma, they come in with pain, they come in with shame, they come in with fear and doubt and guilt and all these things that were maybe, placed upon them, whether it was from their parents or their religious upbringings. And then they come into this over-sexualized place, and then they're on YouTube and they're following these fake gurus, these furus as I call them, who are telling them, yes, in order to get men, you have to do this. In order to get women, you have to do this. And it's like the blind leading the blind. And so I say all that to say, the work that I teach comes from an actual discipline. It's a practice, it's a science. And if you were good in science, and even if you weren't, you understand that with science, and for instance, baking, we'll take something extremely simple. We know that with baking, there is there's like a, oops, what do I want? I don't want this on here. Hold on, guys. I pushed something wrong. There's a formula, right? If you've ever made cookies, there's a formula. There's a recipe. If you don't follow this recipe, the cookies are not going to come out. They're going to either go flat or it's just not going to work. So with the work that I teach around Tantra and intimacy, it comes and is based on a formula. And the formula is based on the science of sexual polarity, which means that it's not just some stuff that I dreamt up or conjured up in my backyard, or one day I decided to, create a podcast, have a bunch of people on, and now I give this advice. No, this work comes from a lineage that's over 4,000 years old, that is like a manual, a key to understanding the complexities of intimacy, relationships, and sex from a polarity perspective. What does that mean? From a polarity, it's a duality. It's from a plus and minus. It's from an opposition, like understanding how everything in the universe basically functions on a frequency, on a vibrational level. And to understand that, you have to understand some basic nuances about energy, about chakras, energy centers, about frequencies, different layers of consciousness in the universe, things that are way beyond YouTube and that I get into at my retreats. But this path is a path of ultimate union, of divine union, of understanding how you as a unit that has plus and minus, has positive and negative, connects with someone else who has those same energies, and those opposition of energies attract and they like magnet together. And so this is the practice. I kind of dummied it down and made it sound hopefully a little more simplistic. I'm sorry, I was reading some of these comments here. A little bit more simplistic to understand like what these principles, what they are based on. They're based on metaphysics. They're based on the science of sexual polarity. They're based on principles of universal laws and universal principles that are in nature, that are also in us, that correspond, that correlate, that connect, and also recipes or rituals. People freak out when they hear that word. They're like, rituals, what does that mean? Are we going to do some seance? Is this satanic? And no, it's none of those things. But it is like a formula, like a recipe for intimacy, for relationships, for lasting, passionate relationships. And a part of that is sex and sexuality. And so this is what I teach. And I teach this process in a very immersive way. So if you come to my retreats, you're getting an immersion, a sensory immersion, 5 days where you're like fully immersed in this practice. So what you hear, what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what you touch is going to be an immersive flow of all those things into one. So you're not just sitting listening to me talk. You're doing, you're engaging, you're doing exercising, you're basically making the cookies. It's like a recipe, a formula, and we guide you through this process so you can see it and you can hear it, you can smell it, you can taste it, you can touch it, you can feel it, and it's right before your eyes. Now, we have singles who attend. We also have couples who come. So my work is for both. And it doesn't matter if you're straight, gay, if you're married, I don't care what it is that you subscribe to, whatever it is. You come and we still teach the same concepts, the same principles of this tantric practice, but with a modern day approach so that you can actually use and follow these principles and this recipe in your everyday life. Now, I think that is what people want. Actually, no, it's what people want, because we have these problems. Like we have 30 million men who have some form of ED or PE. We have majority of women who cannot experience a climax, an internal one. And then we have, most women don't experience it at all. A small percent of women actually are experiencing it through a clitoral stimulation. But we know, again, the average sexual encounter lasts 5 to 7 minutes from start to finish. Okay, 5 to 7 minutes. Let that sink in. Then we have, you know, most women can only experience a climax around 70% through clitoral stimulation, which means they're never experiencing those deeper internal intimate O's that really take them to altered states of consciousness, that like flood their body with endorphins that are youthful, that keep them glowing, that keep them fertile, that keep them feminine, all those things. If you think about it, we want women to be more feminine, but yet how they're enjoying sex, how they're experiencing pleasure is the masculine way. Now, if you want to know more about this is the kind of stuff I cover in my retreats and my one-on-ones, because to go into this, I can't do it. Also on Patreon, I'm saying whatever, because Patreon's cool like that. I don't even understand how that works, but all I know is my team puts all the content from my retreats on Patreon. That's where they put it. There's nothing, they don't filter anything out. So you're getting some of the activities, you're getting all my lectures, you're getting real live sessions with couples and interventions and things like that. And this video, guys, is really just an intro, and ladies, lovers, my tantric lovers, if you will, is just an introduction of who I am, the work I do, why you should care. So I know it's a bit like, why is this on YouTube? But it is what it is. And this is also for my podcast, to understand like what is the work that I'm doing and why you should be interested, why you should follow me on Spotify, why you should follow me on Apple, and why you should continue to listen to me on YouTube. Now, each week on YouTube, I'm going to attack another aspect of this practice. It's so intense. It's so vast. I could do literally a live every day and not cover a portion of the tantric practice. That's how intricate it is. So we'll start with things that we can sink our teeth into. We have tantric astrology. We have basic tantric practices you can do at home. We have understanding the science of sexual polarity. We have how to heal from sexual trauma, conflict resolution, my conflict resolution method, which is like totally just slipped my mind right now. Feelings, I can't even think of the acronym right now. I am all over the place, but it's all good. It's in my book. And the point is, we're going to cover each one of these topics each week, and I'll dive deep into it. Now, just so you know, I used to give you guys everything on YouTube. If you go back to some of my first videos when I first started YouTube back in the beginning of COVID or mid-COVID, I was doing just fine. COVID was not messing with me, or the YouTube wasn't messing with me. My videos were getting out there. I was getting hundreds of thousands of views, and I didn't even have like 500 subscribers because people wanted to see this content. They wanted to know, how do I have tantric sexual intimacy? How do I explore breast play? How do I explore I don't even know what I can say. You know, oral related sexual activities. How do I explore Kama Sutra? Like these videos, I didn't even know how to create a video. And I was just sitting on my couch, kind of like I'm doing here, but upstairs in my home, and recreating some of these things. I even did some satire, and that stuff was going wild. But now YouTube says, nope, we're not interested. We don't want to see that content. And so what do? Keep getting banned off of every single platform, which has happened to me multiple times. Like every platform is my 6th and 5th and 6th and 7th account. YouTube, you know, they took my channel from me twice last year on the 4th of July. Thankfully, shout out to Dr. Barr, who's a friend of mine, was able to help me because someone, her cousin works in YouTube, and I was able to get my channel back. And now there's all these regulations. The point is, and there's my feminine energy going off on a tangent, is I can't put everything here anymore, guys. I tried to give you guys free stuff, but now they don't let me. So if you want to see the content that YouTube isn't letting me post anymore, you have to go to Patreon, or you have to come to a retreat with me. You don't have to, but it'd be interesting to. And if you want to dive deeper into this practice, then yes. So Patreon, everything. Or if you got a passport, you got the coin, retreat with me. Or if you really have the coin, one-on-one, because that's obviously the upper echelon. And now I have a strict protocol for weeding out people that I work with. I had one stalker since incident, and I said, it's not worth it. I have a son. I'm a 9-year-old. No, thank you. So now in order to work with me, there's this prerequisite list to here that I go through, and you're screened, and then I only take applications for my clients that I work with. I have 6 months programs, and if you want drastic changes in your sex life, in your intimacy, healing trauma, if you want secrets to 10x your finances, tantric secrets, sexual rituals, and things I can't get into here, then the one-on-one is where you get that, and that of course is an extreme investment. But if you just want to get this content and see what I'm teaching, but on the levels that YouTube won't let me, Patreon. It's like I feel it's like $27. It's my lowest tier, and I have tiers all the way up. So that's where you're going to get the unedited content. But back to why you should listen. So we told you what might be some of the challenges, where my lineage is, a little bit about my background. I don't really want to dive deeper into that. I will do a whole video about my background, because I'm going to post that on my Instagram and here and everywhere. There's so many things that I think people assume about me. It's just kind of, I understand, there's a lot of things that were said about me. I was on one platform where they made a lot of allegations about me that weren't true, but what do? I put myself in that position, and I had to kind of take ownership and say, okay, well, I wanted to get, coverage at all costs, and I got coverage, and it wasn't in my favor. So what do I do now, right? I just live my truth, and the people that know me and know my work know that I would never do anything to harm anyone, and that my highest purpose in this life is to serve my clients and to help others heal the way I've healed. End of story. If you really know me, then you know this. If you're just some guy that lives in his basement with blue hair and likes to attack people, then you think something else, and it is what it is. So what are the benefits of even watching my channel? Well, first of all, I am going to be interviewing some interesting people. I tend to run with some people that are very affluent, either in athletes or doctors or personal development. So I'm going to have some amazing guests on and talk about what they are experts in, and also I'm also going to get juicy with them. I'm going to ask them their intimacy, secrets and challenges and wins and all these things, because that's what I do best. And then if you're in a position where you've never understood women, I feel like a lot of men don't understand women, right? It's just like, who are these creatures that I'm completely mesmerized with, but also completely afraid of? Like, we're gonna get to the real of what women really want from an actual woman who is quite feminine and is extremely nurturing and has studied this practice on divine femininity, being fully connected to it. So you're gonna hear from me on what it is that women really want from you. And I'm gonna give you, I told you, if you stick around to the end, I'm gonna give you a little secret about my next episode, and also a secret about women. And because I know most of my viewers right now are men on here, and that's fine. Yeah, I'm just reading some of these comments. All right, so, and I guess if I start going live, I'm going to need some monitors. So if you're interested in monitoring, and some of you guys, I know YouTube is like your life, you're on there all the time, and that's great. And so if you're interested, leave a comment or something, and then we'll arrange that, because I really have no idea how any of that works. Thank God for my team in the Philippines. Shout out to the Philippines. All right, so moving on, what are other reasons why you should consume this content if you're listening on the podcast? Okay, so number one, if you're a man or a woman who is single or in a relationship. Number two, if you're a man or a woman who's single, in a relationship, or going through divorce, or you don't want to go through a divorce. If you're a man or woman who's single, in a relationship, going through divorce, don't want to go through a divorce, and want to find your soulmate, want to find the love of your life, want to find lasting, passionate relationships, but you have some challenges that have stopped you from getting that result that you want. Because if you want anything in life, you have to say where you are. That's man, woman, single, dating, in a relationship, unhappy in a relationship, on the verge of divorce, don't want to get a divorce, or want to find their partner. Those are where you are. And where do you want to be? Lasting, passionate, intimate relationships, right? I can't say the other word because I'll get canceled or whatever. So where you are, where you want to be. How do I bridge that gap? Well, I bridge that gap by, number one, we work through anything that's hindering you, which typically is shame. Sexual shame is the lowest vibration on the planet. So we work through that. And sexual shame is a huge one. Under that umbrella is sexual trauma, sexual assault, sexual like repression from dogma, religious dogma. Anything that you've experienced that has cut you off from that divine connection and the divine pleasure that is your birthright as a human, that's what we work through. And that's the basic thing. Now, a lot of that, what does that mean? So you're like, what does that even mean? All right, so how it manifests. How it manifests would be, number one, we'll start with men because men are here, I know. So this would be ED challenges, PE challenges, challenges with having that desire, that urge, stamina lasting long enough, getting it to work when you need it to work, if you know what I mean. Addiction to, what are they saying these days? Prawn, I don't know. They change the names all the time. Addiction to lonely fans, addiction to anything that is an instant need gratification, but that's not really addressing the real issue. That's the work I do. We address the real issue, because you can't just put a Band-Aid, like, yes, it's great to get fit. Yes, it's great to make money. But at the end of the day, I know a lot of guys who are fit and have money that have these challenges. They're my clients. They have a lot of money. They're super fit. They're super wealthy, but they have the challenges. They are not lasting long enough. They don't want to have sexual relationships with their partner. They are addicted to lonely fans. They're addicted to buying women, things like that, all these things. So these are the things, that's how it manifests. For women, it's different. Or for men, it could also be, you want to just 10x the capability of your successful potential in life, including finances, etc. And we do that with understanding some unique practices of sexual tantra, but that's more advanced work. Now, if you're a woman, the manifestations of the shame and the trauma and stuff will look like inorgasmic, in the ability to relax or to even desire sexual activity, the ability to experience pleasure. Sometimes maybe a woman they can't climax, but they can't even experience pleasure. The other thing is they can't even feel. Do you know that most women dissociate during sexual activity? And the other ones who don't do that, they just don't feel anything. It's like it's happening, but they feel absolutely nothing. This is not normal, right? This is not normal. This is all trauma and things that are built up, and these things can all be solved. So it would be a woman's inability to give up control, her desire to stay in the masculine, her desire to relinquish control and to surrender, her desire to always have to be right and always be in control. These are things that we don't want women to have. They have become normalcy for women now, but these are things that we work through. And for men as well, some of these things might be the inability to actually step up and take the lead, because they're in a relationship maybe with a woman who they feel if they say no to, or they actually do step up and take the lead, that she might leave them. And we know men don't want to be left. I think there's this propaganda out there that men are just so easily wanting to move to the next woman, but that's a small percentage of men. Most men want a woman. When I said woman, I'm going to say it again. A woman who is fully receptive, meaning that energy, that feminine essence, that fluidity is open. She receives, just like anatomically, she receives you into her body. They want that same energy from you in day-to-day life, right? A man wants a woman who receives them, who receives their guidance, who's able to to follow their divine leadership skills, who is willing to be led and to be provided for, and who's able and desires to be protected. Most women say they want that, but when it comes to the relationship, they really want to call all the shots. Pardon me, I had to get some water there. So when a woman shows up like that for a man, it's very intoxicating for him because he's not used to that. Today we have this, you know, this trend of women just being independent and not meeting men. And men are not so quick to leave. It's actually, we know that women are filing for divorce. Men will work it out. Men want really the stability of a divine feminine essence, that presence, that energy, that receptivity, that vulnerability. All those things are intoxicating for men, just like a woman who's in her feminine really desires a man who's divinely connected to his unwavering, unshakable presence, who leads, who protects, who provides, who preserves the legacy for their children, who is present with them, who gives them directed, connected, focused energy, these types of things. So this is the goal that we want, but we are nowhere near that today, right? Not even close. So in recap, who I am, I'm a tantric intimacy therapist. I always used to say sexpert just because it was funny. I trained in Thailand for a year under my ashram, or at an ashram under my gurus, with a lineage that goes back from India over 4,000 years. I also trained in India, the path of Tantra. I'm also trained in just traditional Hatha yoga, which is actually where I got my start. I was just a yoga, not just a yoga teacher, but I was a yoga teacher who was really focused on alignment and flexibility. I worked with a lot of professional athletes to help them get that flexibility in their body. And I also am trained in holistic nutrition. So I'm a holistic nutritionist working with how the mind-body connection works. And it's not just the food you eat, but it's everything else. That's a huge part of sexuality. And I think people forget about like what you eat affects your sexual life as well. So that's another component I have. Not to mention my training, I'm a Reiki master. That means I'm the highest level of energy masters. So I use my hands and I move energy, as well as with the tantric practice of moving energy. So I'm an energy master. I like to say I'm a sexual energy master. In addition to my yoga, my meditation, breathwork, tantric energy, Reiki master, holistic nutritionist, I'm also a dance movement therapist. So I work with using the body to pull trauma out from men and women both. There's a lot of modalities. We do some of this at my retreat, a lot of this in my women's masterminds. And I've studied NLP, which is just understanding how the mind, the language that we use affects our everyday life. So there's a lot of language patterns that we have in our intimacy and our intimate relationships that affect our sex life and our intimate relationships. So it's all correlated, it's all connected. And lastly, I am working on, I'm finally doing it, just finishing for my son, but really have my bachelor's degree in advertising. So that is, I'm one semester away from that. So that's a little bit about my background. And the work that I do, I work with singles and couples who want to remove shame and any hindrance that's keeping them from experiencing lasting, passionate, intimate relationships. And I do that in the form of one-on-one, which is my elite coaching practice, which is by invitation and strict screening only. And then we have mastermind groups for women. And lastly, I work with people at luxury destination retreats around the world. And if you like this work and can't do any of the following, but just want to dive deeper, then my Patreon is where you're getting that work. And I think I've covered most everything. Now, I told you if you stuck around to the end, I was going to give you a tidbit about my next session, if you will, my next live. And so I'm going to just crack a little bit of that, so you guys will hopefully stay tuned to the next one. So I'm going to be talking about the main difference between single people, married people, and like, what is that mentality in married people versus single, and what is the level of happiness? I think most people equate being married as like, or in a committed monogamous relationship, if you will, as being the mecca to all happiness, right? Like, if I have this relationship, I will be happy and blissfully, you know, like blissed out, right? And so I want to break that down of all the different types of relationships. After that, we're going to talk about different types of attachment styles in relationships. We'll also be talking about, I know a lot of you guys don't like this, but the women will, tantric astrology and the compatibility of your partner in the realms of tantric astrology, which is a little different than just your regular astrology. And then after we've kind of built that foundation, we'll move into the sexual challenges that men have, the sexual challenges that women have. And so, yeah, we're kind of going to go from there. So we'll build a nice foundation of the single versus the married relationship gap. We're going to talk about attachment styles in relationships. We'll talk about tantric astrology in relationships. We'll talk about sexual challenges for men, sexual challenges for women, as well as, yeah, we're going to leave it there for now. I think that's enough. And I hope that this has been enlightening. If it wasn't, then maybe you're not for me. But if you did find this work or a little bit about my work interesting in any way, shape, or form, please leave a comment. Please like, please subscribe, please turn on your notifications. Yeah, help me get back in the algorithms, y'all. And again, I do my best to give you as much juicy content as I can, but you know that YouTube is not a huge fan of that now. So you're going to have to check me out on Patreon, guys. I'm not really on Rumble and all those other ones yet. It's just like a lot, but maybe at some point. But for now, this is it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate those of you who have been following me from the beginning, when I had no idea what I'm doing. I still don't really know what I'm doing, but I just love sharing holistic and alternative approaches to relationships, intimacy, and sex, because I feel like this is such a taboo topic. There's so much misinformation out there, and I like to give you an approach that's based on science, on metaphysics, and a little bit of spirituality and a little bit of personal development, because I'm a huge biohacker and I'm obsessed. All right, so thank you so much for those of you who watched. I appreciate it, and I will see y'all on the next one. For those of you listening on the podcast, I really hope that you found this intro interesting, and I can't wait to take you on this journey with me, Shakti living, understanding what the tantric living is about, what is for you, what's not for you, what you can use. I'm going to be giving you guys tips and tricks that you can do at home, actual things that you can try at home and kind of get your practice going, because I know people want something tangible that you can use right away. This is going to be the place. Plus, we're going to have a ton of celebrities and guests, athletes, the best people in their fields, doctors, to come on and collaborate with what I'm talking to in these respective fields and topics on this huge and ever-changing, but really always staying mostly the same, the science of understanding sexual polarity, how to keep lasting, passionate intimacy in your relationships alive. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Mwah. Lots of love. I'll see you soon.